so that otherwise we'd miss it all.
Awesome. Thank
Okay,
you.
here we go.
Yeah, so I guess I'll get into it just by kind of sharing what our team, the Office of Volunteer Engagement, is doing around National Volunteer Month, and also just kind of some things I've seen across our different states and programs and things I've heard. So, volunteer recognition is such a big part of what OVE does, not just during National Volunteer Month, but really throughout the year. And so for National Volunteer Month, we've launched a slew of resources really to help states and programs recognize volunteers and really keep them top of mind, not just during this month, but throughout the year. So one thing that we've done is we've put together a new creative catalog of design. So everything from thank you cards, flyers, digital ads, certificates of appreciation. And they're all available in Spanish and in English. And what I love about them is that they're very inclusive. If you look at the creative, and I can pull it up later, the creatives themselves have a bunch of thank yous in different languages. So really trying to thank volunteers in the various languages that they might speak. So I thought that was a nice personalized touch compared to what's been done in the past. Something else that we're doing this year that's a bit different from previous years is we've developed a series of creatives that we're really hoping volunteers will take and post on their personal social networks or their platforms, really telling their story. I think we do a great job at sharing the volunteer story from the AARP perspective, from our perspective, but these new resources are really meant for volunteers to take and post on their channels, speaking to their volunteer story. So maybe sharing best memories that they've had, causes that they care about. So really just encouraging them to, again, share that story from their perspective. And these resources are available at multiple sizes for different channels like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We also just launched a thank you video, which has also been done in previous years, featuring a special message from AARP leaders. So from Joanne Jenkins, Nancy Lamond, and the president of the AARP Foundation, Claire, really thanking volunteers for their service. That video is available in English and will also be available in Spanish in the days to come. And what we're also doing that we did at the end of last year is we're sending personalized thank you cards to select volunteers from states. So we reached out to state offices at the end of last year and again now for National Volunteer Month, asking if they could submit names of volunteers that they would like to receive a personalized thank you card. And so we're sending those and we're really, honing in on specific accomplishments and achievements that the volunteers are proud of that they want to be recognized for. Later on, towards the end of the month, around Volunteer Appreciation Week, we are going to be hosting a volunteer expo, and this is more for volunteers and for staff around the national office to attend in person. And we're also going to be doing a fireside chat with our VP, Michelle Bico Jackson, where she's going to talk about volunteer engagement and recognition and interview a volunteer on their service and their story. So that's kind of, what we have put together as a department. I don't know if anyone has any questions about some of these resources that I went over or whatnot.
Isla, did you have anything you'd like to share with the group, or at least show them a bit about what it looks like?
Yes, I would love to. Let me just pull it up. One moment. Something else I'll mention while I look for these creatives is that we're actually going to be launching a public-facing landing page, so a page that's going to liveon.org. And we hope to launch that around Volunteer Appreciation Week, which I think is closer to the end of the month. Mm-hmm. And with that, we'll be able to display some of those personal stories. So as we get stories from volunteers, they'll be hosted on .org. So that way people can go and check them out on the page. So I'm going to share my screen. And I apologize, it's been a while since I've used Zoom. So, um,
There you go.
awesome. So as you can see, this is kind of just the general design. These are thank you flyers that just kind of speak to, our volunteers making a difference and how our volunteers are changing lives. And they're available in both English and Spanish. We also have a print ad, and the print ads, I believe, come in different sizes. So if you did want to print something and post it in an online or traditional media publication, you'd be able to. We got some really nice digital ads meant for various digital channels like Facebook and Twitter. Really, again, showing that same message. Thank you cards, and I love these thank you cards. They're foldable, and so they thank the volunteer, for their service and for really, working to improve the experience of aging for all. And these are also available in Spanish. A new certificate of appreciation. And then to the general social media graphics as well. So, and these are all customizable. So for states and programs that wanted to use them, they could add their own QR codes, their own links to their Facebooks, to their websites, etc.
All right. Does anybody have some questions about what Isla has talked about so far? Okay. Oh, there she is. You moved on the screen. Well, I have a question. It's not about what you talked about. The volunteers, or I know I got one and a lot of people did get one, got pins this year that have the little circly things and stuff on them and the words. How are those being received? Are you getting any feedback on those or what?
Yeah, so thank you for bringing the pins up. I've actually got mine right here. So at the end of last year, we sent recognition pins to volunteers with a really nice letter to accompany the pins from Joanne. And we've got some great feedback already. I did have some state offices submit pictures of the volunteers wearing the pins, which was nice. So the pins, when I would share them, but it's very small, so you couldn't see. But the pins have 6 words, and all 6 words are used to describe volunteers. So everything from inspiring to visionary to innovative. But the feedback's been really, really great, and something that I wanted to do was I haven't had the time to do is I was hoping to hop on Chatter in the volunteer portal and ask volunteers to take pictures and submit pictures of themselves wearing the pin. So great feedback so far, and definitely something that we want to keep in mind as we think about recognition, moving forward. Because even though it's National Volunteer Month, recognition is really something that should be top of mind throughout the year, not just this one month. So thank you for bringing it
up. Gary is showing us his pin.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah. One other question, Isla, and if anybody else has a question, they can chime in here as well. You mentioned something about wanting stories from people, wanting stories from volunteers. How do you want to get those stories? Is there some way to get them or grab them?
Yes. So I have started engaging in Chatter. So every week from now until the end of the month, I'll be posting in Chatter with a graphic and a little prompt, just encouraging people to take a look at the prompt, answer it, and post on Facebook. So kind of just, again, sharing their story as to why they volunteer, maybe where they volunteer. So Chatter would be a great avenue. We're also going to be working with Will Stoner and his team. They utilize Sprout Social, which is like this digital platform where volunteers can take content, post on their channel. So I'll be putting content into Sprout Social that people can then take and post. But the stories, feel free to submit them to me. We've asked for stories, I believe, in the OVE update. So anyone can email them to me or to their state office or their program. I can drop my email in the chat. So because again, I would love to share those across, internal communications, but also externally as well.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Chatter, and what is the title of that Chatter group?
It's in the state volunteer,
Okay.
in that general group.
Okay.
So, yes, and I believe for the most part, everyone is in that group.
Right. Just
Deborah, if
wanted to
I could
make
just
sure.
pose a question to the participants, those who received the pins, if you want to put in chat, what did you think when you got the pin? How did it make you feel? Who did you think it was from before you read the note? What were your impressions about receiving that beautiful um, circular pin with the wonderful words on it? We'd love to hear your feedback.
And while you're thinking about that or putting that into Chatter, one of the things that impressed me this time about OVE and how they approached this pin, they actually went to volunteer leaders, volunteers, and asked, what words do you think would best describe what you do or how you contribute? So rather than just staff coming up with it, they asked volunteers, what did they think? And there was a wide range of things that finally got down to that 6 words, I think, because there were people looking up uh, definitions to see if they actually described what it was people were doing. So I thought that was a novel approach, and pleased to hear that voice of and see the voice of the volunteer in action.
Yes, and I kind of to piggyback off of that, Deborah. So we recently launched a new recruitment campaign called it's called "Turn a Lifetime of Experience into the Experience of a Lifetime," and that tagline was also something that I think a volunteer from AARP Iowa came up with. So I thought that was pretty cool. That I think they had a think day where they got together and were kind of brainstorming, and this tagline emerged that a volunteer shared, and now we're using it in this recruitment campaign across the enterprise. So
Great. Okay. Anyone else have a question or comment for Isla? Oh, yes, ma'am, Miss Harriet.
So getting back to the thank you cards, and I may have missed this, but how can we go about obtaining them?
so they are available in the brand creative catalog and in self-service. They would need to be ordered for print, and I can certainly help you with that.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's a really good question, because we looked at all the great stuff, and if we can't get it, it's not going to help much.
I
So
will
thank
need
you,
help as
Harriet.
well with that. This is Sheila from South Carolina.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would need help with the volunteer thank you cards.
Yes, I can definitely follow up after the call.
Okay.
I dropped my email in the chat, but I see the chat moving, so I don't know if my email got lost in it, but I'll drop it in there again.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it will stay for everybody that's already here. If somebody new comes, they won't get it. But
Okay,
we'll make
awesome.
sure that they know where to find you, Isla.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much for coming on today. Mary, did you have a comment for? I know we're
Always great to hear the wonderful things that are happening out of the Office of Volunteer Engagement and supporting volunteer efforts. And we always like to be appreciated. And a great note from a staff partner or even another volunteer, I know is always special, because we don't have that many handwritten notes that come to our mailbox. I know I always feel really special when I get something like that. So thank you for providing that tool for us to use.
Yeah,
For
of course.
And it looks like we've gotten lots of comments in the chat on how people felt about the pin. And we'll, that chat will be available along with this recording, and we'll be able to share that back with people. Okay, Dr. Mary, are you ready for question 1?
I am.
All
And I
right.
placed it in the chat already. And today, of course, we're talking about awards and what else you do for volunteers, because we know that all of us do award-winning work, but everybody can't receive an Andrus Award every year. But there are so many other ways to honor and appreciate and say thank you. So, what ways have you found to adapt awards to the unique needs of individuals on your team? And how do you find out from volunteers what recognition is important to them? Anyone want to share your activities that you do to honor honor the work that volunteers do, or anything that you do in your areas that may be unique or just special? And we can even have volunteers share things that they've received from their state that honored your work. Patrick, I see your hand up.
Hi there. Thank you. Yeah, I was going to share. I was started to type in the chat, and I realized that could take a long time, and we don't have time for a novel, so I'll try. I'll just say it. We ask a lot of our long-term volunteers what they've appreciated about appreciation over the years and different things that they have experienced. One thing that was shared from some of our really long-term volunteers, and to give some context, we have a gentleman who has been volunteering for over 55 years. We'll be celebrating this fall because he's also been the head of a chapter for that amount of time. They really valued roses, preserved roses. I guess many years ago there were preserved roses sent out, and several of the volunteers still have them. And they're a conversation piece that other people see and recognize, and so it's often something that they can share about. But the idea that I wanted to share really is several volunteers have asked for a way to pay it forward, to thank other volunteers and recognize others. And so, one of our thoughts as we move forward in the coming years with volunteer appreciation is to investigate ways to do that, to give our volunteers a way not only to be appreciated and recognized, but to offer that forward to someone else. And obviously, the Andrus nominations is one way that we accomplish that with community partners. But we just like that idea because many of our volunteers, it's always good to be appreciated, but some are shy about appreciation or recognition, and often the work is what's so important to them, and that's their reward. So understanding that nature is what we've thought about, a way to make them feel good about passing it on. So thank you for letting me share.
You're welcome. And I have one of those forever roses, actually, and felt very special when I received it as well. Someone else said, I love the forever roses. They're very cool. Anyone else have anything they want to share about adapting rewards to your individual area, or how you recognize your volunteers? While you're thinking about that, let me add another question. When you manage to communicate, let me put it in the chat first. I don't want to do two things at one time and mess up horribly. So it's in the chat for you to read. So when do you manage and communicate expectations for volunteer performance? And I see Kathy's hand up. Kathy. And then Christine.
Hi, I actually just had a follow-up question for Patrick. So when you said volunteers asked us how they can pay it forward, I live in the world of examples. So from our perspective, we have the gift cards and we sometimes give them to volunteers who say, I need a gift card. It's like, well, you can give that to somebody, right? You can pass that forward. You can choose who you give that to. So that's where my mind went, but I don't know that that's what you meant.
No, so sure. No, I appreciate asking for further clarification. Essentially, it comes from the Andrus Award and sort of the nature of inspiration and inspiring other volunteers in volunteerism. And so the opportunity for a volunteer to receive a recognition personalized from our state president and our team but to also have a note that they can then send on to somebody and put a sentiment down about why that person inspired them. It's kind of like sharing forward the inspiration toward volunteer service to others and volunteerism. And that, because so many of our volunteers can be articulate about that, we thought it would be nice to allow them to have a voice in that process too.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Patrick and Kathy both, from what Isla was saying, we could use the thank you cards to be sent from a volunteer to another volunteer. It doesn't have to come from staff. And I know that that's only one thing that could be done, but she was mentioning the chatter group, and there is a way to award within the chatter groups of the portals recognition. You can get a badge, you can give a badge to someone to thank them for work that they have done, or just, you know, recognize something in the portal. So that's another way on the small step. But if you want to do something bigger, you can actually use those same cards and pass them on. And you get to write.
So Maryland put in the chat that they use gift cards in an annual get-together. And this year in Connecticut, they're having an annual get-together at the governor's mansion.
Cool.
May I ask, on that note, you just mentioned, you know, the volunteers can give the thank you cards from one volunteer to another, and that's a great idea. But just point of clarification, those are available through the
Through the
Those are-
through the
brand.
catalog. Through
Yeah,
the catalog, right?
Yeah.
But only staff has access to the catalog. So we would have to go through our staff members to get copies, to get a supply of those.
right, right.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean you can't get a supply in advance and then give that out to people, and then the volunteers can write their own notes.
Right. So as always, coordinating with our staff members to get access to the materials.
Yes, unless you have access to the brand catalog, which
Right.
some volunteers do have.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Marilyn.
If I can just ask volunteers in the room, what are some things that you, what would you like to receive? And I know that we're doing this out of the goodness of our heart, but if you could choose some one or two things to receive as appreciation, just throw it in the chat. What would you like to receive? So that we can just have some ideas. And Christine?
Yeah, just quickly, you know, I started to do the outreach management for Lexington team since July. So what I recognized right away, every month there seemed to be one volunteer that went over and above, you know, did lots of events, or, you know, there's just certain ways that they excelled. So I created right away an excellence award that I do every month. We meet monthly. We usually have about 25 in person, about 5 online, zooming in. And so I just recognize 6 different volunteers, and you know, our office has quite a collection of these really nice AARP swag. I'm talking the elevated ones, like the notebook holder, cups, just, you know, more pricey items. And so I would give like a collection of those items, and several of them have really appreciated it because, you know, like a large umbrella, so it would be a package gift deal. And it would only go out to those volunteers that were like I said, like doing 2 or 3 events or multiple events, speaking and tabling and all of that. And it is greatly appreciated because I have a little like trophy ribbon thing that I put in front of their chair, and we make a joke about it because it's like, don't take that home. I need it next month for the next one. So it's fun. It's easy. They really do appreciate it. I've had some of them come back and express how much they like that really nice swag. So
That sounds easy to do, and it sounds like it's greatly appreciated. And I like the kind of the traveling trophy that doesn't travel. I like that too, you know. In the chat, we have several people indicating, we have Linda and Becky who say, you know, just a note. And I couldn't be more in agreement with that. Just a sincere note of thanks. Sometimes getting that in the mail, along with that stack of things that want our money, means the world to us. So get a nice pen and, you know, write the name, and, you know, I draw little flowers on mine. You know, I love that stuff. I do. So I have one more question, and let me put it here. So, of course, with award-winning behavior, we know that sometimes we fall short. We have to address that. You know, it's the yin and the yang of situations. What happens if if volunteer performance is not meeting expectations is one question. And when do we ask volunteers and volunteer leaders what they need to be successful? So those two questions kind of go hand in hand, because obviously if someone's performance has fallen short, we perhaps haven't given them all the tools they need to be successful. I see Linda, you've unmuted, so I know you always have something good to contribute.
Oh, thank you very much, Mary. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was surprised. I may have mentioned this earlier, but I had an honest conversation with a volunteer who wasn't really showing happiness with the kinds of things that she was doing as far as activities. And I, you know, just took her out for coffee and I said, it seems that there's something else that you'd rather do. Am I reading you right? And she said, I would rather do something else. I would rather not be having to speak out online with other volunteers. I'd rather be in the background helping with check-in at events and things along those lines. And I think it's just a matter of being aware of people and, you know, reading their body language with the activities they may do. And I would think that volunteer leaders would be very receptive to an urging of keeping their finger on the pulse of what's going on with the team members, because we tend to go to the folks that we know will do the job, and whether they want to do the job or not is often not the question that's asked first off. So, you know, it's nice to be appreciated, but at the same time, they need to show that the project is of interest. Otherwise, they'll burn out.
And how observant and how kind of you to not only approach it that way with, you know, a cup of coffee in a nice neutral location, and, you know, just listening to what the volunteer says she needs to do. I mean, that means the world. So thank you for sharing that example, Linda. Valerie, Valley, I see your hand is up.
Yes, it is. Thank you, everyone. And I appreciate being on this call today. I'm fairly new to AARP in the sense that I've just joined maybe about 7 months ago and ended up talking myself into a volunteer coordinator position. So I'm just so thrilled at that, you know, to begin with, number one. But, you know, this question resonates with me in the sense that we are actually kind of grappling with volunteer expectations, the goals and the expectations that we have for folks that are currently part of our, you know, committed roster. And this is kind of a comment and a question at the same time. I think exactly. I echo, I think, what Linda just said in terms of making sure you keep your finger on the pulse of what people want to do. You have to be very cognizant of not only temperament, but what their skills and capacities are, how comfortable people feel, potentially with technology to do things, what is their temper, what is the temperament. And so we make a concerted effort in the Maryland office to make sure we keep in close contact with all of our lead volunteers, first off. But the thing that we're also grappling with is that we are now trying to take a more strategic approach, to having people build volunteer structures beneath just the lead coordinator in a particular county, for instance. A lot of people are very used to doing kind of volunteer activities in an individual capacity, and they have a lot of activities that they're doing. But what we need is that we also need other people to help support that lead volunteer. And one of the things that we're coming up against is asking people to change their mindset about the whole issue of volunteering, making it more encompassing so that they're building other teams to be able to help foster some of the things that we want to do across the state. And some people have taken to that, lickety split, and they're moving forward with building teams. But some folks are very reticent to do that because it feels like an infringement, upon what they've done in their volunteer capacity for years. And also some people, very much take their volunteer role as the identity that they are currently occupied by. So I think the question that I have is then also, how do you bring up the delicate conversation around expanding and having people actually open up, opportunities for other folks without them feeling like folks are infringing upon what their niche has been for a number of years in the office, and things of that sort. It's kind of a real issue for, some of the teams that we're attempting to build right now.
That is a great
Does
question.
that make sense, with other offices? Mhm.
I'm sure that there are several in this audience that have some wonderful, real examples of that. So I'm going to just look and see if anybody's raising their hands or coming off mute to share an example. No names, please, but I know there's examples out there. I know there is. I know that there are states where we've had longtime volunteers that are good at doing something. They've been doing it. We have new volunteers come in, and there's a little bit of a territorialism that appears to be established. And so a new volunteer may feel a little bit hesitant that they can't step into that role because it seems to be owned by another volunteer. Anybody want to share an example?
Okay.
Linda?
I would probably suggest the buddy system again that we brought up before, of perhaps teaming them with someone else so that they have someone that they can work with that has been doing the role for a while, and to give them that leadership position of welcoming new people. That might be a way of doing it, because it's a kinder and gentler way of saying, hey, you've done a fabulous job. Would you help us train? And giving them the leadership role.
That is a very tactful way to do that.
Yeah, and we've attempted to do that with a couple of folks. Yes, I agree very wholeheartedly. I guess it's just opening people's aperture to really receive other folks to come in, to help. We have, so we're working with that. We're building, some ways for better communication, more interactive things for people that are lead volunteers and then folks in the community, setting up monthly meetings so that we have, a more consistent way to communicate, with the volunteers across the state. So hopefully that's starting to, seep into folks' minds in terms of, that there's enough work for everybody, in what we're attempting to do. And, so, but I agree that that's probably a very good way to try to approach this.
It
And
looks
I
like
see Ernestine's
Ernestine.
hand.
Oh, and
Becky.
Becky.
Oh, thank you.
Someone triggered. We've got a
Okay.
bunch of people now.
There we
Come
go.
on now. Let's hear from you, Ernestine, then Becky, then Gloria.
Okay, I have a little bit of a different situation. We have volunteers who are now checking out. I don't know how else to say that. They volunteered for a number of years. They've done a really good job. And because there is an environmental change, if I can use that language, they're feeling not necessarily pushed out, but not as appreciated and not knowing exactly what to do. I think there should be an opportunity to say thank you. You've really done a great job. And it might need to come from the volunteers to the volunteers, if you know what I mean. And I don't quite know how to do that without creating another level of friction, if I can put it that way. But I do honestly think it is something that should happen. These are volunteers who've taken the lead. They have been very good about doing events and playing different roles. And it's mostly a group that has worked together for about 5 or 6 years. So there's no mess, but there's a need to say thank you. I think I'll be quiet.
I think that's a wonderful example of real life that's happening in many of our areas. And I think volunteer to volunteer is a wonderful way to uplift each other. I'm going to stop talking so Becky and Gloria can talk. Becky?
Yes. I have always been in a position where if I did a good job, then I need to find another place to put my efforts. And what I mean by that, being a teacher, not in the public school system, but in the adult education and in high tech, if I've trained somebody properly and they can take over my job, then I think it's a good opportunity for me to look at, maybe I need to expand my horizons. And getting it from staff saying, I agree 100% with Ernestine, you do need to get those kudos. You do need to get, you've done a good job, but there is a lot of opportunities. And, it takes me, I've seen some volunteers come in, and I know a few of them that would do a fabulous job of what I'm doing. So I have to reevaluate, am I really wanting to continue on this path, or do I want to venture out into something else? And as long as you're learning, you're living, as far as my philosophy goes. So sorry. But coming from staff and other volunteers saying, yes, you've done a great job leading. We don't want to lose you by any means, but if you want to continue leading, go ahead. I don't know if I'm phrasing this correctly. Just giving the kudos definitely helps, but also giving them a chance to reevaluate and maybe reposition themselves to where they will be happy, because they might have been in that position for a long time and getting a little bit time to move on or refresh my memory, give me something new.
Yep.
And what comes to mind for me, Becky, is succession planning, kind of.
Absolutely.
Or, passing the baton, and like you said, let somebody else that is capable to do it and enjoy what you've done.
Yeah, it's such a rewarding feeling to be able to pass that baton. And then you don't have to necessarily move on, but you do. I don't know, as far as I'm concerned, I need to keep learning things and keep creating things and exploring. And that's part of why I volunteer, because I can do that.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right. Miss
Gloria?
Gloria?
Okay, I would just say ditto. Becky said it far better than I could, but we'd make a concentrated effort, the Volts in Florida, at trying to bring in new people and get them in the speaking orbit, and then get them in the training of the new ones, and get them on our onboarding teams and our mentoring teams. We work really hard at trying to turn over, and half of my time is thinking, who can I give this job to, especially if there's something new starting. And I did start a new process just a couple of weeks ago, and so I learned one of the volunteers had said he might want to take on extra, so I wrote him and I said, I emailed and said, can we talk about this and would you be interested? And he just took it over. And so that just totally took a burden off my shoulders. I was thrilled. So, you just, if you don't ask people, they won't voluntarily move up unless you ask them to. So you have to read the room, like Linda said, am I reading you right? Then you have to work with that. I don't do very well at it, but I'm thrilled when it does work. So thank you.
Mary?
Deborah, take it away.
Well, Mary's got her hand up. We're just going to keep going here.
Oh,
Okay, so I just want to say, I agree with what Becky says about the fact that you have to keep on learning and growing. Just because you're no longer working or you're semi-retired, it doesn't mean that your brain has turned to mush. I think a lot of people really enjoy what they're doing, but they would like to have the opportunity to go and do something a little bit different. The key to some of this, and it's a little bit of work, is if you're going to have somebody go into different roles, building them up or taking on new responsibilities, you're going to have to be prepared to spend a lot of time working with them so that they feel confident in what they're doing. You have to be their cheerleader, okay? And hopefully you've got a good staff person that's going to be your cheerleader and let you grow so that, you can slowly say, okay, this person is really doing a great job. I trust this person to do it, and they'll be fabulous. And if you have that mindset, I think that's something that could be continually passed on. But that's just my 2 cents.
Well, as usual, Mary, your 2 cents is wonderful. It makes us think. Thank you very much. Now, Miss Becky, I think you've got another comment.
Well, I'm just bouncing off of what Mary just said. And, HR has really done a lot of research and come up with a lot of tools, some simple, some more complicated, some are free, some are expensive, on re-evaluating where you're at and what you want to do when you grow up. And I think if staff, yeah, I know, I'm still growing. I think if we got the message from national down to staff and staff buy-in, that maybe invest a little bit in the volunteers and show them that, there's all kinds of all kinds of opportunities. I don't want to use the word other because that's indicating that maybe they're pushed out of that position, where they're not being pushed out. It's a conscious decision.
All right.
That's all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you very much. And we spent so much time on this comment and question. We're out of time for today. So thank you all very much. I mean, one of the things I know I heard, and I've looked at the chat, and we're going to be passing all of this back to people in the recordings, but you do have to ask people. It helps if you're willing to listen after you ask, and you've got to kind of give people a chance to say no, to say maybe, and have some communication that then tells them, these are the options that are out there. You know, if people are thinking, as I know I did, I'm created it, so I've got to hold it close to me because who else is going to know about it? Then there's a problem. They've got to see that there are more people who know or can learn what's going on. So let's ask and create and communicate. So thank you all very much for coming today. Our next meeting is, I know it's going to be in May. Oh gosh, it's hard to believe that it's May already. Wow, wow, wow. And of course, because we always talk about volunteer engagement, that will be one of the topics. And we will be talking about rural perspectives. And I expect that we'll have some people here to help us with that as well. So thank you all very much for coming. I hope everyone had a chance to see the eclipse. And then you can be like me, put up your glasses for 2044 when it comes back again. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Deborah, you want to stop the recording, please?
Yes, ma'am.